sale very shortly at trendsjournal.com.
I would imagine a lot of people will be wearing those shirts on Memorial Day weekend in Kingston, New York, no?
Oh, yeah. Yep. And of course, we're going to have a great rally here. Unfortunately, you won't be able to make it this time, but we're going to have Dennis Kucinich, who is the campaign manager for RFK Jr.
Right.
And Frank Morano from WABC Radio, John Whitehead, Gary Null, myself, and a number of other speakers. So everybody, please try to come to the rally on May 27th, 1 p.m., Kingston, the Four Corners of Freedom, John and Crown Street. And if you can't make it or you can make it, do what you can to donate to Occupy Peace, occupypeace.com.
Dennis Kucinich is one of the most courageous members of Congress in the modern era and one of the strongest defenders of civil liberties that I know. He's a liberal version of Ron Paul.
Yeah.
Well, I had two shows on Fox, on my Freedom Watch program that were the highest rated. One was Ron Paul and Ralph Nader. The other was Ron Paul and Dennis Kucinich. It's amazing how much they agreed, certainly when it comes to personal liberty.
And anti-war.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And fiercely anti-war.
Yeah.
So Dennis should be a very big draw. Your audience is in for a treat.
Yep.
When they get to hear Dennis Kucinich, his knowledge of the war machine and ability to expose its insidious operations is extraordinary.
Yep. And he's going to be speaking on behalf of RFK Jr. So it's going to be a lot about what he has to say. And, going back to your article, you go on to write about what Jefferson did. He said, now you say the government that Jefferson left us has been inverted. The government needed the permission of the voters to do nearly anything. Today, we need the permission of the government to do nearly everything. And folks under observation change on account of the observation. So in other words, when they're watching you, we'll do what you tell me to do. I'll do what you tell me to do. And you talked about the COVID war, how they sold fear and hysteria. And by the way, in the Trends Journal, last week or a week and a half ago, the World Health Organization said, quote, the pandemic was over. Do you know when they called it a pandemic? Who? The World Health Organization?
When?
In March of 2020. The COVID war broke out in China to celebrate Chinese Lunar New Year, the year of the rat, in January 2020. The fear started selling big time in February 2020. In March 2020, there were like 5,000 people globally out of 8 billion that died of COVID. And they called it a pandemic. What are you talking about, a pandemic? It wasn't a pandemic. Exactly what you said, how they sell us fear and hysteria to get the people to follow. And
right.
Now here's the final number. Again, remember, most of the people that died of COVID had 2.6 pre-existing comorbidities: obesity, type 2 diabetics, respiratory ailments, or the elderly. Out of the entire global population of 8 billion, about 6,750,000 died of COVID. That means 99.91% of the people are still alive. Those are the facts.
Gerald, it was a dry run for the next time, the real time, when they want to repress everybody. I don't know that it's going to work next time.
Oh, I
don't know that the American public, even the Western world, would accept another one of these lockdowns. And I hate to use the word; it's a prison term. I know to the elites, we are their prisoners, and they love that term. I condemn the term, but whatever terminology you want to use, they will try it again and they'll fail.
Well, they'll try it again, maybe not like that. What they'll do is, as I say, when all else fails, they take you to war, and they'll sell fear and hysteria and get the people marching off again like they always do.
Right.
And again, when you look at this COVID thing, for example, adults I talked to, one guy, 80 years old, and a smart guy, he walked by the other day. Hi, Gerald, how you doing? I'm doing good, blah, blah, blah. I said, look, I'm having another rally. They hate me up here because I have peace rallies. And I said, I'm going to have Dennis Kucinich as one of the speakers, and he's the campaign manager for RFK Jr. He said, well, I like RFK Jr., but boy, he was anti-vax, and I don't like that. You have no idea how many so-called adults still associate him with anti-vax. And the reason why they don't like him is because they sucked up, bowed down, and did what they were told. And they can't stand people who didn't do that.
Right.
And of course, I had big rally here when everything was locked down. And we had several hundred people here during when everything was locked down. And we all died from the virus. None of us.
You and I were there. You and I were there, and we're both alive and happy and healthy.
Yeah. So again, the lies that they're selling it may not be a lockdown. It'll be another fear and hysteria, and the people buy it all the time. I'm a Yankee Doodle dandy, Yankee Doodle do or die. I'm going to going overseas to fight for democracy as we lose it in front of our eyes. Judge, they just came out with this again, to hate the Russians. It's always hate the Russians. And this new report that came out, I remember when Russiagate happened, it was a load of baloney. Those of us that were studying the facts knew it, but the people bought it. And now this new report came out. What do you think about it?
I think the new report didn't tell us anything that's new, but it reinforces our observations that the FBI will begin criminal investigations on the basis of the political bias of the investigators. And that's a violation of the Civil Rights Act. It's a violation of other federal laws. Did anybody get indicted? No. Will there be any accountability? No. Did they call out the CIA and the Brits for spying on Trump before he was even a candidate for president? No. It basically reinforces what we already knew. But in terms of accountability, it's another whitewash. The FBI is nothing without the DOJ. It doesn't have arrest warrants. It can't start a criminal investigation. It doesn't have search warrants. It doesn't have grand jury subpoenas. And who ran the DOJ in these years? Bill Barr. And who appointed John Durham to investigate the DOJ and the FBI? Bill Barr. Do you expect there to be any accountability? Of course not.
No. And what do we need an FBI for?
It's not in the Constitution. Jefferson would be turning in his grave at the thought of a federal police department. There's only 2 federal crimes in the Constitution: treason and debasing the money supply. All else was intended by the framers. All other criminal behavior was intended to be prosecuted by the states, so there would be no one central control over it, as there is today.
Now, what did you say about the 2 crimes, or what? What are they?
Treason,
yeah,
and debasing the money supply.
So, in other words, then Jerome Powell, Janet Yellen, the whole Federal Reserve should all be in jail.
Absolutely, because that's what they do every day, is debase the money
right
supply.
In front of our eyes.
Correct. For the past 100 years, going back to the presidency of Woodrow Wilson, who gave us World War I, the Federal Reserve, the federal income tax, the administrative state, the popular election of senators. But going back to that time, the same mentality has governed the country, no matter which party is in control. That's a pro-war, pro-regulation, pro-big government, anti-constitution, anti-civil liberty, anti-peace mentality. And we suffer from it horrifically today.
And, that's why I support RFK Jr. for president and Judge Andrew Napolitano for vice president, because you're both on the same page, being against everything that you just said. And Kennedy's coming out about how the bigs are controlling everything. and on and on and on. He's on so much of the same issues as we are. And, you know, as people say, I hate him because of climate change, that, you know, come on. You know, this guy's also a great environmentalist. You know, he's saved a lot. It's not only about climate change. And I think he'll change his mind on that as well, as he sees. Matter of fact, he's even said it, that now it's become a takeover by the Bill Gates and the billionaires, bringing it in a different direction from where it's supposed to be going.
Well, every time Bobby Kennedy talks, it goes up in the polls. And every time Joe Biden talks, it goes down in the polls. Now, the polls are just of likely voters in Democratic primaries. And of course, the Democrats have skewed their primaries. They've taken them out of Iowa and New Hampshire and moved them into South Carolina and somewhere else, I forget where Joe Biden is likely to prevail in hopes of a quick knockout of Bobby. I don't think that's going to happen.
I think the other place that Biden's big is not the other place. What'd you say? Which one? Carolina?
South Carolina.
Timbuktu is the other one. He's big there.
Wherever the hell that is.
Exactly. Judge, thanks for being on today. And thank you for all that you do. I so greatly appreciate it. And it's a true honor that we do this each week. Thank you.
The honor's mine. Looking forward to seeing you soon, my friend.
Ciao, ciao.